Our first case tonight is a murder. John Gaspa, a London restaurant manager, was killed just over 11 weeks ago. The manner of his death strongly suggests that somebody who knew him must have been involved in his killing. But tonight, detectives believe that viewers who may never have heard of John Gaspa might be able to help discover who did kill him. Our reconstruction starts in the West End of London, where he worked. The Pizza Pomodoro in Beak Street, London W1. It's on the north side of Soho, 5 minutes from Regent Street, and it's busy from lunchtime till late at night. John Gaspa had several partners, but as manager, he virtually lived in the place. It was a year since he'd started there, and literally hundreds of customers, particularly the women whom he made a special point of talking to, would remember his chat and easy charm. John Gaspa was something of an entrepreneur. During 1986, he'd been hoping to expand and had been looking for new businesses in London and beyond. He'd made inquiries in Hull and had recently visited properties in Taunton in Somerset. He used his Camden Town flat almost like a hotel. He rarely got home before 2 a.m. He'd bring a carton of milk from the restaurant for breakfast, the only meal he ever ate there. The flat was comfortable and secure. He never felt the need to double lock the door. If anyone wanted to get in, they'd have to obtain a key.
Penny for the guy! Penny for the guy!
It's Wednesday, November the 5th, 5 days before John Gaspa died. In Kensington High Street, West London, is Banham's, the specialist locksmiths. Sometime that day, probably during the morning, an expensively dressed couple were waiting for service. Other customers might recall an argument one of the salesmen was having with a man who couldn't prove his identity.
You can ring my solicitor.
No, we need to see some proof of ownership before we can re-register.
You can ring my estate agent.
The couple seemed uneasy and rather self-conscious. An expensive beige car, perhaps a Mercedes or a Daimler, was parked outside. Someone wanted a duplicate key to John Gaspa's home.
Can I have a kick-up, please?
I'll just check the registration for you.
The letter of authority with Mr. Gaspa's signature on it was forged. But the man had one of Gaspa's rate demands and his key. A second key was duly cut.
Here's the rates demand and the registration card. If you could ask Mr. Gaspa to complete it and post it back to us. And here's the key.
5 days later, Monday the 10th of November, the day of John Gaspa's death. Berwick Street Market in Soho. At about 5 p.m, Mr. Gaspa popped out of the restaurant to pick up a suit from the dry cleaners.
How's things?
It's all right, thank you. How are you, all right?
Very well.
Over the next couple of hours, he certainly went back to the restaurant, but it's still not clear whether he went anywhere else or met anyone else in that time. The Gardens Health Club in Kingley Street is a couple of minutes' walk from the Pizza Pomodoro. John was a regular client, and we know he checked in at exactly 6:50 that day.
Great.
Okay, see you
Thank
later.
you very much indeed.
John spent about an hour there. He used the sunbed every other day. As he was leaving, he bumped into a business associate, Doran Zilka.
Just the man I was looking for.
How are you?
Fine, I'll just pop into the restaurant.
I'm going round there now. Come with me.
Fine.
OK. Bye, Melanie.
Bye.
Thank you.
The two men hadn't seen each other for a few weeks, and they had various joint business ventures to discuss. Zilka was there until about 10:30. During that time, he remembers John spending quite a lot of time talking on the telephone. And he also remembers something else John mentioned.
In fact, I'm leaving early because I've got to meet someone.
Apart from his intentions to leave early, John Gaspa seemed his usual self. It was just a normal weekday evening at the restaurant. He ate just before midnight, and it was after that that he broke with his usual routine.
Socky, I've got a very important meeting early in the morning and I'm leaving now. Can I have a pint of milk, please? Yes. Will you lock up? Give the keys to Tiziana so that she can open in the morning. Yeah. All right. All right. Okay. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
He may have had 2 appointments then, one that night and one in the morning. If he did have a meeting planned for that night, police have never discovered where it was or who it was with. They do know he left in his partner's green VW Golf, which he often borrowed. His flat is in a small block overlooking Camden Road, about a couple of miles due north of Soho. From forensic evidence, it seems he could have got back there any time between 12:45 and 2 o'clock, and he was probably alone. His flat was on the 3rd floor of Julian Court, and as he took the lift up, John Gaspa probably had no idea that someone was already up there waiting for him. John Gaspa was shot as he walked in the door. No one else in the block heard a sound. Detective Chief Inspector Ian Blair is investigating the case. First of all, what more do you need to know about where John Gaspa went on the day that he died?
We've looked into that day very thoroughly, Sue, but obviously there are gaps. He popped out of the restaurant from time to time. He made lots of phone calls, like the one that was shown on the film. And we need to know who he spoke to and who he saw when he popped out. Above all, however, what we really need to know is when he left that restaurant, where did he go and who was he with? It looks as though he was probably alone and he drove home alone, but it might be that this meeting that we're missing was somewhere else and he picked up his killer. So we're really very interested in anybody who saw John on that night.
Right. Now, going back to November the 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, when somebody got a duplicate key to John's flat from Banham's the locksmiths, you need that couple to come forward.
I need that couple to come forward. I also need everybody who was in Banham's on that day. It may have been that couple who had the key cut. It may not have been. It may have been somebody else. So I need to know anybody who was in Banham's on Guy Fawkes night.
That rates demand was genuine, and so was the key. How do you think they got hold of that?
Well, it would have been possible to get hold of the rates demand from the communal postal section of his flats, and the key must have been stolen.
But the letter, that was forged.
Yes, that was forged. I've got it here. It's grey because it's been fingerprinted, but it's on white paper. And this letter here is not in Gaspa's writing, and it's not Gaspa's signature. Now, it's possible that the Banham's end is something that Gaspa arranged, but we don't know that, and it's a very, very important clue.
It's unusual writing with the little circular dots on the eyes.
Extremely unusual, and we'd like to hear from anybody who knows that writing.
How much do you know now about John Gaspa himself?
Well, that's really the main point of the appeal, Sue. We've looked into this man's life. It's a very private life, in compartments, in which one compartment doesn't know another compartment. And in that life, there is nothing which gives an indication of why he was killed. This is a very premeditated murder. There's the key, there's the appointment to which he was obviously going. There's a diary that's missing. He wrote everything in that diary and we have never recovered it, and it's likely that the appointment was in that. And what we're really looking for is what is it in John Gaspa's life that we don't know about that has led to his death? Somebody wanted him dead, and they wanted him dead so badly they are prepared to go to these lengths. So I want to hear from anybody who knows John Gaspa and who has not yet contacted the police.
Mr. Blair, thank you. And if you do, and if you can help, please call now on 01 811 8055. That's 01 811 8055. And remember, there are detectives from the case here in the studio, or you can speak to a BBC researcher if you prefer. And there are lines open now to the incident room in Kentish Town Police Station. Their number is 01 725 3782 or 3786. That's 01 725 3782 or 3786. Well, now to our first case this month. Most murders are committed by someone who knows his or her victim and who has a very clear motive. Cases of indiscriminate killers who kill more than once are rare. But last month, it seems that one man met and then murdered 2 young women in the space of 36 hours. And police are convinced that this is the type of killer who will attack again. So your help on this next case is vital. Our reconstruction starts on the night of Saturday the 24th of January in the Bayswater area of West London. Marina Monte was a heroin addict who worked as a prostitute to finance her habit. She was 27. She had no family in England, only a boyfriend who was also an addict. On the night she died, she set out at about 10:30 to look for business around Bayswater and Paddington. She usually headed towards Sussex Gardens, but there've still been no specific sightings of her that evening. Her killer may have been among her first clients. Mitre Bridge railway junction, Scrubs Lane, 3 miles from Paddington. At about 11 o'clock that night, the signalman noticed something unusual. A car turned into the service road beside the railway and stopped there for some 4 or 5 minutes. In the darkness, the signalman could see only that it was a small car. He couldn't make out what the driver was doing. Marina's body was found there by a railway worker at 7:15 the next morning. She'd been strangled, and her boots and handbag were missing. Rachael Atherwaite also worked as a prostitute in the same area of West London. She was 23. Rachael lived in a DHSS hotel in Earl's Court with her 20-year-old boyfriend, Ian. They'd been together for 6 months and had frequent arguments, usually about money.
I gave you some last week.
I bloody spent it, didn't I? I need some more. I've got our clothes, haven't I?
How much do you want?
20 quid.
20 quid?
Well, it's my money anyway.
Rachael depended on Ian for friendship and companionship. She rarely saw her family. Her mother was in hospital and her father and sister lived in Oxfordshire. On the afternoon of Saturday the 24th of January, the same day that Marina died, Rachael and her boyfriend watched television in their tiny hotel bedroom. They were there until 6:30 and it was time to go out looking for business.
Nothing else on?
I just came in, I just turned it on.
Rachael had moved to London some 4 years ago and had worked as a prostitute ever since. She could be loud and aggressive and had an increasing drink problem. Shortly before 7 p.m, they arrived at Cleveland Terrace, where Rachael usually stood waiting for passing motorists to pick her up. She was soon approached by a man in an orange Mini.
Okay.
Okay.
Ian always checked out the customers. She usually spent 20 minutes to half an hour with each customer, but it was 2 hours before she reappeared at Cleveland Terrace. She was drunk and Ian was furious.
Where the bloody hell have you been? I know, Johnny, right. You've been drinking.
A cab driver witnessed the row, and anyone else there would remember it too.
Calm down! Where the hell do you think you're going? Yeah, I'm not far away. Get out of the bloody cab! Leave me alone! Get out! Get out! Leave me alone!
The cab driver saw them disappear in opposite directions. Ian got back to the hotel at about 11 o'clock, but he didn't see Rachael again, that night or ever.
9 to 6. Where's 9? 9 to 6. On its own.
Well, who put this one there?
Me.
You?
The next anyone heard of Rachael was the following day, Sunday, at around 12:30. Her father was making his daily visit to her grandfather in an old people's home in Oxfordshire.
Hello, Dad.
Are you still at the hotel?
No, I'm not there anymore. I'm staying with a friend at the moment.
He didn't know where she was ringing from or why she rang him that day.
Yeah, well, look, I've got to go now because my money's running out.
Well, look after yourself then. Goodbye.
These bloody drinks, black. Can you get me another?
But at 9:30 that Sunday night, Rachael was seen with a man and a girlfriend in the King's Head pub, Edgware Road. And again, she was heading for a row.
If she comes over here, she's bloody going to get a load. I'll tell her, I'll bloody sort her out.
The girls who were laughing at her noticed she was wearing an odd, rather old-fashioned two-piece outfit that was much too big for her.
Oh no, I'd love to know if she gets her gear from. It really is something of a joke. How not to look.
And she was attracting further ridicule at the pool table.
She's like a grotesque little man, isn't she?
Rachael had had enough.
You stupid slag!
It was a fight that everyone in the pub that night certainly witnessed. Closing time was 10:30. The events which followed the fight are crucial if police are to find her killer.
Look, just forget it, all right? I'm going to the loo.
Where Rachael went next is still a mystery. It was the last time she was seen alive. She tottered out of the pub, clutching a white plastic bag. The man she was with has still not been traced. A couple of minutes later, the man followed her out. Police don't know whether the two met up again outside. The next day at Sumner Place in Chelsea. There's a row of lock-up garages behind the flats there. At about midday, a resident returned to her garage after 24 hours away. Rachael's body had probably been dumped from a car, as Marina Monte's had. And like Marina, she'd been strangled, and her boots were missing too. Well, Detective Superintendent Jim Hutchinson, both Rachael and Marina worked around the same area, and our map here shows where Marina went. We don't actually have much information about her, do we?
No, she left the hotel at about 10:30 that night. We'd like to hear from anyone who saw her leave the hotel or saw her in that area, because our next client could have been her killer.
Right. Now, you have a lot more information on Rachael's movements before she died. First of all, the driver of the orange Mini, which picked her up that Saturday night. He hasn't come forward.
No, he hasn't, and that's very important to us. She was off for a period of about 2 hours with him, and we'd like to know where she went, who she went with. It's very important to us.
She told her father on the telephone that she was staying with a friend. You don't know yet who that friend could be.
No, that's correct. She did stay with a friend. We're sure of that. We haven't found out who he is, but she had a change of clothing, you see. The clothing you see on the screen at the present moment is actually the clothing she was wearing.
That's the only picture we have of the actual clothes she wore.
Yes, that's true. That clothing is vital to us because she changed into it. Her boyfriend hasn't seen it before. It may lead us to the friend or indeed give us vital information. It had a label on the back of it, Sue. You can see on the screen it was Warren Petite. That's the manufacturer, but there were two names on it, and with the use of ultraviolet, we managed to bring up the name P. Suarez and also the initials TK. We'd like to hear from either P. Suarez or TK who are able to say, well, that's a uniform that I wore, because I think it probably belonged to someone working into the hotel or catering trade.
Right, absolutely vital.
Yes.
The other thing is that the man seen drinking with her that last night in the King's Head in Edgware Road hasn't come forward either.
No, he hasn't, and he definitely is vital to our inquiry. Yes, he's a man of continental appearance, probably Greek or Arabic. He's about 5'9" in height, aged 35 to 45. His hair is black and it's got specks of grey in it. He's wearing gold-rimmed spectacles. And although we're not sure about the clothing, he may have had a ski jacket on. On his left finger, or finger of his left hand, he had a large medallion ring.
Mm. And somebody must have seen her at closing time after when the pub closed that night in the
Oh, yes,
road.
certainly. She was very, very drunk, and she couldn't have got away from there on her own. She may have been pushed into a vehicle. It's vital that anyone who saw her on the busy Edgware Road at about 10:30 that Sunday come forward and talk to us.
Is it possible that other prostitutes might be able to help?
Yes, there's a possibility. Many of the girls actually travel down from the Midlands, from Coventry, Nottingham and Huddersfield. Many of these girls haven't appeared on the streets since. They can indeed help us. We'd like to hear from them.
Mr. Hutchinson, thank you. And if you think you can offer any information about either Rachael Atherwaite or Marina Monte, and particularly their movements over that weekend beginning the 24th of January last month, please ring us in the studio here on 01 811 8055 or call the incident room at Kensington Police Station on 01 741 6212. That's 01 741 6212. Well, now the first of tonight's cases. It's a callous and apparently motiveless murder. Eddie Owusu was an attendant at one of the national car parks in London. On a Saturday night, 9 weeks ago, he was shot while he was working. People from all over the country were using the car park that night. It serves a nearby theatre where Alice in Wonderland was playing. So if you were in that audience that Saturday, or if you were nearby, you might remember something which could just be the piece of information police need to find his killers. Our reconstruction starts on the morning of Saturday, the 17th of January, in Hammersmith, West London. Hammersmith Broadway. Underneath the flyover is the Sussex Place NCP car park, where Eddie Owusu worked. That Saturday morning, Eddie arrived just before 10 o'clock to open up the kiosk for the day. It was bitterly cold that January weekend, and there'd been snow and ice on the ground. Eddie, who was 46, had been the car park attendant here for 5 years. He came to Britain from Ghana in 1967, and his wife and 3 children followed later. He was a popular man and highly thought of by his employers at national car parks.
We found him to be an excellent employee, someone who worked very, very hard at his job. A person that I've always valued his work, his loyalty, his ability to do the job. One of these people that you don't find everywhere, an employee who I suppose you wish for.
About 100 yards away from the Sussex Place NCP is the Hammersmith Odeon, a popular music venue and theatre. The Odeon was preparing for a musical production by a Buddhist group, NSUK, that evening, Alice in Wonderland. Eddie usually took a break around lunchtime and often used to do the family shopping. This is probably what he did that Saturday. The Owusu family lived in Plaistow. Eddie and his wife Comfort were a devoted couple. They were well known and widely respected in the Ghanaian community. 10 to 6 that evening, a Ghanaian friend stopped by the kiosk.
Owusu.
Hey,
They spoke in a mixture of their native Asante and English.
Long time no see. How is the heart?
Not very good. It's cold, so I keep indoors most of the time. I'm
Yeah?
on my way to see a friend, yeah.
Why don't you come in for coffee?
No, thank you. I'm on my way to Richmond. I'm in a hurry. It's
Okay.
getting a bit late, so I'll see you later.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
7 p.m. At home in Dacre Road, Comfort Owusu telephoned her husband at the kiosk.
Hi, darling.
Oh, hi.
Is everything okay?
Okay. Look, we are very busy at the moment. The cats would need to come in. I'll call you back. Yes, I promise. I will.
All right, don't work too hard now.
Okay. I'll call you back. Bye.
Speak to you later. Bye.
At the car park, people were arriving for the evening's performance of Alice. Followers of NSUK had come from all over the country. The show was due to start at 8 p.m, but it wasn't until 8:20 that it actually got going. And outside, a few cars were still arriving at the Sussex Place car park, as late as 9:15. Hammersmith Bridge Road, the bus stop for the 9, 33 and 72 buses. Waiting there were Ian Mole and 3 friends. Walking towards the bus stop was this man, Neil Blackgrove. He thought the noise was a car backfiring in the car park. Ian thought it was a shotgun.
Go and get the police!
He ran towards the car park kiosk. Eddie Owusu was lying on the ground, bleeding heavily. From the road, Neil saw 2 figures weaving between the parked cars. The one wearing a duffel coat seemed to be tucking something into the front of it. He watched as they ran from the car park across Hammersmith Bridge Road. A car heading towards Hammersmith roundabout hooted at them as they dashed in front of it. They ran towards Angel Walk and disappeared. The door of Eddie's kiosk had been stove in, but there was still money lying on the counter. At home, Comfort was never to get that call from Eddie. Eddie Owusu died from gunshot wounds in the thigh at 2:27 the following morning. Well, Malcolm, you're looking for two killers with no apparent motive. Eddie was a very popular man, wasn't he?
Very popular man. We think that this was a robbery which for some reason went wrong.
Even though money was left behind?
We think that they discovered on entering the hut that the money was in fact kept in a safe in the floor of the hut, and that Eddie did not have the key for the safe.
And there were two shots. Do you think they intended to kill him?
The very fact that there were two shots makes this a very brutal killing. That second shot was totally unnecessary. The first shot would have severely injured Eddie, and he would have been beyond offering any resistance at all.
So your appeal then is for anybody who might be able to offer any information about those two men, assuming they were men?
Yes. Any close friend of theirs, associate, or particularly the partner in crime, who may wish to tell us who the gunman is. The gunman is a very dangerous man.
Well, to jog people's memory, let's have a reminder of the geography of the area, looking at our micromap. Under the Hammersmith flyover there is the car park, and there's the kiosk where Eddie was shot. The Odeon is about 100 yards away, and the bus stop where Ian and his friends were is in Hammersmith Bridge Road there. And there's where Neil heard the gunshots, and that's the route where the two killers ran after the shooting. They ran through the car park and then out and across the road. There's where they dashed in front of the car, and there's Angel Walk leading into King Street, which is the main shopping centre. And it's very busy round there, isn't it? Somebody surely must have seen them that night.
In King Street, it was very busy. It's possible someone may have seen two men emerge, or two figures emerge from Angel Walk. The car park itself wasn't busy with people, but we would ask anyone in the vicinity of the car park or in the car park who saw anyone hanging round before the shooting, possibly from 8 p.m. until 8:45, please to contact us, because these men may have been reconnoitring the scene or just waiting round for a quiet moment before they attack the hut.
And indeed, the car driver who hooted up, and perhaps he'll come forward too.
We would hope that he would come forward.
There is a reward, I gather.
There is a reward offered by National Car Parks, and it is a substantial reward.
Right, well, if there's anything you know that could help to find Eddie's killer or killers, please ring us in the studio now in absolute confidence. The number is 01 811 8055, or you can ring Hammersmith Police direct on 01 748 4184. That's 01 748 4184.
It's just over 6 weeks now since a private detective called Daniel Morgan was found dead in a car park of a pub in South London. It was gruesome. He'd been killed with an axe. The police described the case as a sticker. In other words, it's one they just can't solve. For nearly 30 hours, they did hold for questioning Daniel Morgan's partner, John Rees, and two of Rees's relations. And, as you may have read, 3 policemen were also questioned, but they've been eliminated from the murder inquiry. With nothing else to go on, maybe you can help. Our film starts in Sydenham, South London. Daniel Morgan loved the drama of being a private eye. He saw himself as a gumshoe in a TV series, and he liked to boast about the glamour of the job.
It's 1:10.
Collecting bad debts or seeking evidence of a divorce case. But it did involve a lot of cloak and dagger work, and it could have made him many enemies. Apart from his work, Daniel Morgan's abiding interest was fast cars. He had several old ones kept in various places in South London, and he was devoted to his 2 young children.
Come on, Daddy, come on.
Daniel's colleagues describe him as a workaholic. It was nothing for him to drive in his BMW, to do a job in East Anglia, maybe go on to another in the Midlands, and perhaps manage a third in the West Country, all in a single day. They were mostly dirty jobs, though, that other people didn't want to do. He specialised in what are known as motor snatchbacks, repossessing cars for which finance payments hadn't been maintained.
Another bloody nutcase.
Yeah, I had one of them yesterday. I've checked them figures. They seem okay.
Daniel Morgan and his partner John Rees had been in business together for some 6 years, and it made them a good living.
There's no doubt by tonight.
But it wasn't just the money, it was the excitement that made him work so hard. Summons serving, bailiffing, carrying out court orders, which are the stock in trade of the modern private detective. A lot of it caused distress, but he seemed to relish the almost unreal power it gave him.
What do you want?
You know what we want. It's all legal, and you've got to let her go.
On the day before he died, Daniel left his office in High Street, Thornton Heath, at about 5 o'clock. He'd spent most of the day there, but police are anxious to know where he went for the next 2 hours.
Listen, okay, lads, listen. What are you having anyway? Better?
By 8 that Monday evening, he was drinking in the Golden Lion pub in Sydenham with his partner, Jonathan Rees, and 4 other men.
Large brandy and soda, a couple of pints of bitter, and white wine and soda. What yourself?
Next day, Tuesday, he and a colleague came back to the office at around 4:30 after spending the day in Slough. They were in buoyant mood when they went in to see one of their staff.
Traffic on the bloody motorway, what do you think? Anyway, I've got 16 warrants and some off for tomorrow.
Good. I've got some money for you. £70, £1,100. Okay.
Right.
At about 5:30, after making a few phone calls and with all the money in his pocket, Daniel left the office. He and John Rees had arranged to meet a contact later that evening, again in the Golden Lion.
I'm off now, John. See you in the pub at 7:30. Okay?
Yeah, okay. See you there.
But Daniel had another appointment first. He met a woman here in Regan's Wine Bar in Brigstock Road, not far from his office. There were only a handful of other people there. Possibly someone was watching them. Daniel said he had to go early because he was due at the Golden Lion later on. The couple left the wine bar shortly after 7. Was he perhaps followed from here? If not, who else knew where he was going next? Only one other witness has been traced so far who saw Daniel between 7 and 7:30.
Oh, Daniel, just the man. Could you give us a hand with the boards? Cheers. Thank you.
This is just near his office in Thornton Heath High Street.
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
John Rees had already parked his car at the front of the pub. Daniel Morgan put his car at the back. The man they were supposed to meet didn't turn up, and the two of them drank alone. One witness remembers 2 people of Mediterranean appearance looking intently through the window. There weren't many other drinkers in the saloon bar, though there was a ladies' darts team in the back room. Were you there that night?
Yeah, might as well.
The barmaid at the Golden Lion remembers Daniel buying his last round.
Here we go, lad. Give us a white wine and soda, brandy and coke, and a couple of packs of crisps, yeah?
Right, I'm off then. See you tomorrow.
John Rees told the police he left to go to his car at the front of the pub at about 9 p.m. He assumed Daniel was headed for the rear car park. But did Daniel go out the back way to the car park? And did he go with someone, or did he meet his killer in the dark? Close to his car, someone struck him from behind and then hit him 3 more times. Lying next to Daniel Morgan's body were the 2 packets of crisps, which police think were for his children. Douglas Campbell is looking for anyone who was in the Golden Lion in Sydenham Road on that evening, but you're also trying to find who sold this axe. Now, this actually isn't the murder weapon.
Now, that is a replica we bought, but it's identical to the murder weapon.
And it has this orange wax in the top here. It's Chinese.
It's a Chinese axe. They're imported into this country in the thousands, but what is more significant is the way it's taped. It's got 2 elastoplasts on the handle.
As though to be gripped, like that.
That's right, as if to assist the grip or to stop the perspiration from somebody's hands, allowing it to slip. I would ask anybody who saw that axe or sold it in the days leading up to the 10th of March, or who saw it with the plaster on it, to let me know. It might have been left in the back of a car or in a boot.
Now, you have a photo in your possession. You're trying to trace the subject.
Yes, we have a photo of a young lady. It came into our possession, and 6 weeks into the inquiry, we're still unable to identify her.
She may be quite irrelevant, of course.
Might have nothing to do with Danny Morgan at all, but I would ask the girl to come forward so at least we can eliminate her or know exactly who she is.
And a watch was stolen.
A Rolex watch was stolen from the deceased body.
Right, identical to this one.
It is a Rolex.
OK. You believe that somebody must know, even though this could have been a loner attack, you believe somebody either knows or suspects?
Well, in all major crimes, I feel that obviously there's the killer or the criminal, but there's always some other person who suspects that that person is responsible, and I would ask that person in this case to come forward to help us solve this brutal killing.
All right, well, the number to call here is 01811 8055, 01811 8055, or you could call the Metropolitan Police at Sydenham on 01697 9212. That's 01 if you're outside London, 697 9212. Please now try to think back to what you were doing on the afternoon and the evening of Good Friday. Sometime on that first day of the Easter bank holiday, someone murdered a young woman by drowning and left her in a lake just outside Maidenhead in Berkshire. Now, you'll have read about it, the Shani Warren case. It was one of those crimes that capture the front pages. In part, that was because Shani was young, blonde and photogenic. But you may recall the headlines were fueled by an unfortunate public suggestion by one detective that Shani may have committed suicide, that despite the fact Shani had been gagged and bound hand and foot. In fact, the night before the murder, Shani, far from suffering depression, had seemed positively happy.
Evening.
On the Thursday before Easter, Roger Pell, an old boyfriend of Shani's, had gone out with her for dinner in Maidenhead. They'd not met for several months. She'd rung him out of the blue. They both enjoyed the evening and arranged to meet again.
In fact, you can do it like this.
She seemed as happy and relaxed as ever.
I'll learn to master these, I will.
Despite her late night, Shani was up early on Good Friday and drove to Gerrard's Cross to her parents' home. She'd arranged to pick up an extension lead for her electric lawnmower. Shani was 26, the youngest of 3 children. Her father, Joe, works from home. Her mother had gone that Easter weekend to the family flat in Bournemouth, where Joe and Shani were due to join her on Sunday lunchtime.
Here's the lead. I've put a plug on it for you.
Oh,
and,
thank you, Dad.
That should be long enough for what you want.
Great, thank you.
Just as she left, she wondered who should do the driving when they went down to Bournemouth on Sunday to join her mother. Her father agreed he'd pick Shani up from home.
Okay.
Okay, Dad.
Bye-bye.
See you Sunday.
Okay, sweet.
Take care.
Drive carefully.
I will. See you Sunday.
Shani lived just 10 minutes from her parents at Stoke Poges, near Slough. It took her till early afternoon to mow both the back lawn and the front. She planned to take the clippings to the compost heap at her parents' home. Shani shared her house with 2 lodgers, Katie and Fiona. All 3 girls pottered round that afternoon, and Shani seemed to have no firm plans for the evening.
Well, I was tidying my room. It must have been about 6 o'clock in the evening. I glanced outside of the window and Shani was putting the grass cuttings in the black bin liners into the back of her car. She got in the car and drove off down the close.
Just as Shani drove off, her mother phoned from Bournemouth but missed her. She never got the chance to speak to her again. 5 miles from Shani's home at the Taplow Lake lay-by on the A4 outside Maidenhead. At about 10 to 7, someone saw a black car which seemed to be in difficulty. The lay-by is used regularly as an overnight truck stop.
About 1:30, 1:45, I came into the lay-by from the far end. I saw the car, so I dipped my lights thinking it was a courting couple. Drove past it, reversed in behind it, and the car was still there. As I came to put a padlock on the back of my trailer, I noticed the door wasn't shut properly, but didn't think anything more of it, so I just went home then.
The next morning, the driver, Donald Ward, returned to his trailer.
It struck me as being odd that someone would leave an A-registered car with the door obviously not locked, but I assumed that it had broken down and that whoever owned it had gone for a recovery vehicle of some sort. But other than that, I didn't pay any great attention to it.
Many Easter drivers may have stopped on this section of the A4. The lay-by is just 5 minutes from the centre of Maidenhead on the London side. If you did stop or even pass there, you might have seen the car. And the Paddington-Reading railway line also gives a good view of the lay-by. Some 50 trains went past here between 6 and 9 p.m. on that Good Friday. The car was still here the following afternoon.
Me and my wife Carol was coming down this lane, Easter Saturday, about 2 o'clock-ish, 1:30, 2, and we saw the black Vauxhall. And the door was open about 1 to 2 inches. And we just rode past, and about 45 minutes later we turned round and came back, and the car was still there.
At 6:30, a woman walking her dog discovered Shani's body floating face down in the lake. She'd been gagged, her feet had been loosely bound with her own tow rope, a jump lead was round her hands behind her back. The other jump lead, later found in the lake, had been fastened round her neck. Shani died by drowning. Forensic tests have failed to establish time of death, but it seems likely she died on the Good Friday evening. When police examined the Cavalier, the driver's seat was reclined and a blank card in an envelope was on the floor. Shani's lighter was on the passenger seat. In front, on the floor, were the empty grass sacks and her watch. And under the steering column was an Easter egg intended for Roger Pell. Nearby, in the undergrowth, they found Shani's credit card holder, her tow rope bag, and a thank you card to Roger for the dinner on that Thursday night. When the police tried to move the car, they found it had gearbox problems. The Cavalier's shift selector had slipped, and it could only be driven in 3rd and 4th gear. The detective now in charge of the case is Superintendent John Childerley. Let's get this clear. We are now talking about a murder inquiry, not a suicide.
We have always dealt with this as a murder inquiry from the very outset.
Right. Now, there's no definite motive, is there?
No, there is no injury to the body, there is no property that's been stolen, so there is no obvious murder.
Yet there must have been thousands, literally thousands of potential witnesses. This is Good Friday, this is the A4. There must have been thousands of people driving up and down between, well, after the hour of about 6 p.m. on that Friday evening.
Yes, and we're interested in anybody who drove past that lay-by from 6 p.m. on Good Friday evening. As you say, it was a very busy period. We would like particularly anybody who saw vehicles driving into or out of the lay-by to come forward, anybody who saw the black Cavalier in the lay-by, and anyone acting suspiciously in the area.
Just so that people can get a fix on what that lay-by is, it's just the London side of Maidenhead. It's actually a road in itself, isn't it? In fact, it was originally the A4.
It's the old A4, which has now been bypassed and consists of about 300 yards of old road.
In particular, obviously you want anybody who has seen a car broken down there, anybody who went into that lay-by. There was a car seen broken down about a couple hundred yards away, wasn't there?
Yes, there was a black saloon car about 200 yards Maidenhead side of the lay-by with the bonnet up and a man looking under the bonnet. We'd be interested to trace this man because this car may in fact have been Shani's vehicle, or if it not, we want to eliminate it.
Right. Now, there are a whole series of other things. She may have, well, she must have dumped the grass cuttings somewhere. Now, thousands of people would have dumped grass cuttings on Good Friday. They'll have been out mowing their lawns. Anybody who looked like Shani, you want to trace?
Well, Shani was a very attractive young lady, a blonde 26-year-old, driving a very smart car, and the sort of person you would have looked at twice. We have no sightings of Shani at present time from after she left home at 6 o'clock.
She might, of course, have been seen making a phone call as well.
That's a possibility. If the car broke down in that lay-by, there are 2 phone boxes about a quarter of a mile either side of the lay-by where she could have made a call.
This is a replica of a fob and her keyring. These are missing, the original missing.
They are indeed, and we would like to trace these keys. We've made a search of the lake and the surrounding area, and it may be that someone has come across these keys and disposed of them, or perhaps they even know somebody who's got them in their possession, and obviously we'd be very interested in that.
John Shelterley, thank you very much indeed. If you think you can help in any way, particularly if you've got any suspicions about anyone who acted oddly that night, it's Good Friday, remember. If you might have seen something relevant, if you have any thoughts, please don't just keep things to yourself. Our number, 018118055. This is live, so the detectives are here right now. Or you can ask for the Shani Warren Incident Room on Slough 31282. That's 0753, the code for Slough, 31282. Tonight's final reconstruction is from Avon and Somerset, from the seaside town of Weston-super-Mare. In the summer season, Weston is a hugely popular holiday resort, attracting families from throughout the British Isles. A large number of people have settled there to retire, and 2 months ago, a 66-year-old resident was attacked in a wood nearby and killed. It was a Saturday morning at the end of March, a time of year when local residents had the place largely to themselves. The bay and beach at Weston are spectacular. At the north end, the old town overlooks the sea, and above the houses is Walbury Hill. Once the site of an ancient fortress, it dominates the town. The dense woods here are a great attraction to walkers and explorers. Whether exercising dogs or riding horses, hundreds of people come here every day. It's Saturday, March the 28th. Down in Weston, number 38 Osborne Grove. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and Helen Fleet is preparing for the day.
Windy weather seems to have turned around, but the London Weather Centre tell us that conditions will still be pretty miserable when the boat race starts in about 3 hours' time.
Helen was 66 and enjoying her retirement in the house that she and her sister Betty had bought 4 years before.
A new look at another cricket immortal, Dr. W.G. Grace, revealed in a new play called The Champion. But at 6 minutes past 9 o'clock, let's go down the river now.
Helen came originally from the north of England. She lived in Crewe until she was 18, just before the war. Helen joined the ATS and trained as a lorry driver. She then transferred to the Women's Royal Air Force. She fell in love with a Spitfire pilot who was killed in action over Italy. After the war, she married, but it didn't last. She married again, but 20 years ago was widowed. She found fulfillment when she took up a successful career organising trade exhibitions for an Oxfordshire engineering firm. In retirement, her greatest joy was her 2 small dogs.
Don't be a minute, loves. We go walkies. Be patient. We're good boys.
But is there any activity on the river at the moment?
Morning, Helen. Hello, dear. Hello, dogs. Made some tea. Will you be ready right after breakfast? Yes. Well, I'll drop you off on the way up to the woods.
Helen intended to go to Walbury Hill to walk the dogs, but her sister wanted to go shopping for a blouse. Helen promised to drop her off and then pick up some bread they needed.
And I might just buy you a couple of those donuts you're so fond of.
Having dropped Betty off as planned, Helen got to the baker's in Milton Road at about 10:30.
Bye, girls. Bye. 2 loaves and 2 of those lovely donuts, please.
To Eileen Fowler in the shop, Helen seemed her normal, cheery self.
Jam one? Yes, please.
At 10:50, Helen was seen parking at Walbury Hill Road. She parked in her normal spot.
Come on, here we go. Walkie-talkies, walkie-talkies. Come on, Bilbo, Cindy.
Helen walked the dogs here twice a day, normally for over an hour. She suffered from emphysema, so she got tired quickly, but she still covered her usual route of about a mile. On a March morning, nearly everyone in the woods would be riding horses or, like Helen, walking dogs. But at around 11:30, these two girls noticed a young man in a ski jacket walking alone. 50 minutes later, at about 12:20, Helen was nearing the end of her walk. About then, 3 separate witnesses heard a series of piercing screams. About the same time, below the woods, a boy almost fell over. He was running so fast down Prescott Close. 20 minutes later, a friend of Helen's, Sylvia Lewis, was starting her walk. As she let her dog off the lead, she saw Helen's 2 running free.
Oh, hello, Cindy. Hello, Bilbo. Hello. Come on then. Hey, where's Helen then? Where's Helen? Come on, show me where she is. Helen. Helen.
50 yards away, a boy in an anorak was seen by a witness who was waiting for a bus to leave.
But you have to wait until the my leaving time, which is about 4 minutes.
Oh, thank you.
Cindy. Cindy. Hiya, Helen. Cindy. Oh, Lynda, what? Oh, my God. Wait a minute. Wait, please. Can somebody help me? It's my friend. She's lying in the wood. I think she's been attacked.
All right,
Please,
all
could
right,
you come and
calm down.
help me?
I'll come and see what I can do.
Helen had been beaten, she'd been stabbed and strangled. Investigating officer is Ray Sargentson. Not only a very, very violent attack on her, but apparently quite motiveless.
That's right, a very vicious attack on a frail lady, totally unable to defend herself, who in addition to being stabbed, beaten about the body, was also strangled.
Now, the great priority, obviously, is to find those young men in anorak, ski jackets or whatever, who were in the wood on that day, haven't yet been interviewed.
Yes, indeed, yes.
It's Saturday the 28th of May. Obviously, all young people who are in that wood, anybody under the age of, what, 22, 23, should come forward.
Yes, anybody in the wood, on the 28th of March, who was in the wood during the times of between 10:45 and 12:30 should come forward. With a large number of people that we haven't yet traced, who we know were in the woods during the time.
I gather something like 70 people who are in the woods, you think, who haven't yet come forward.
That's right. From other statements of other witnesses, they've told us of descriptions of persons walking dogs. We have not traced up to 70 people who are in the woods on the morning of the 28th of March.
Right, and in fact, I know you're trying to trace another young man and very badly need him to come forward who was seen 2 days earlier on the Thursday.
Yes, we traced a witness about the 6th week of the inquiry who spoke to the deceased 2 days before her death in Worldby Woods. He was asking the whereabouts of some of his workmen.
He was driving a van?
He was driving a van, and Mrs. Fleet was stood there, and nearby was a youth, and this is the only sighting we've ever got of the deceased with a single youth. She basically only spoke to other persons walking dogs.
Right, this is about 4:10 on Thursday, 26th of March.
Yes, that's right.
Now, obviously, somebody may have suspicions about somebody. You've got a photo, a video fit, actually, a computer-enhanced video fit of that youngster who was seen 2 days before. We don't know that that guy has anything to do with the crime. You just want to eliminate him, yeah?
Yes, certainly do. He's a very important witness. He's been seen speaking to the deceased, and we clearly do want to eliminate him from the inquiry.
Somebody, of course, may be shielding someone. They may have suspicions about someone who acted oddly.
Yes, the viciousness of the murder leads us to believe that somebody will be acting in an irrational or unusual manner, and we plead to anybody who knows any person, whether in their family or not, to come forward and supply us with the information.
All right, incidentally, I might say that when we did that reconstruction, you heard all those screams, nobody rang the police and nobody came to investigate. Let me also say, incidentally, the 2 dogs have been found a good home. Don't ring us about that. But if you've any suspicions about who might have done this thing, terribly important you act quickly. Please do call us. You can speak to a BBC researcher if you prefer. The number, of course, 01811 8055, or dial the incident room at Weston-super-Mare 25411. That's 0934, the code for Weston-super-Mare 25411.
Our first case tonight is a very sad one. Christopher Cumley, a jeweller, was in the process of closing down his small shop in Stoke Newington in North London. He was going to leave the jewellery business for good and move away to the country with his wife and 3 young children. On the morning of Wednesday the 17th of June, with just 2 days more of trading left, he was murdered, shot by 2 robbers for the sake of a few gold chains. His dog Sasha was shot as well. In our reconstruction, Mrs. Cumley talks about the plans they'd had and the events of that day. And I should say that a specialist theatrical agency provided the dog to play Sasha's part. The date, again, is Wednesday the 17th of June. Christopher Cumley lived in Walthamstow in north-east London, and his shop was in North Wold Road in neighbouring Stoke Newington.
I started the business 4.5 years ago, and we had high hopes. But during the course of that time, we had quite a few problems. It started with somebody snatching a bag from outside the shop. About a year later, somebody hit him over the head with a bar. Then, 2.5 years ago, he was subjected to an armed robbery. They held one of the customers hostage.
But let her go.
Shut up! I think we felt that we'd had our fair share of trouble, so we would press on to the end of the lease. But we decided not to renew. There was no way we were going to stay there. And we had decided to move out of London, to take the children and live out in the country. And we were within just a couple of weeks of closing the shop when this happened.
Wednesday morning, June the 17th, Mr. Cumley was getting ready to go to work as usual.
Come on, Sasha. Come on. Just off, dear. Bye.
Oh, okay, dear, bye.
And you kids, piano practice.
Okay, Dad.
Okay, Dad.
Bye, Daddy.
Bye. Come on. Come on. That's it. Oh, here's my bus. Bye.
Mr. Cumley always took his dog, Sasha, with him.
We got Sasha from the RSPCA after the armed robbery. We felt that we wanted a guard dog. But we also had to have an animal that would fit in well with our family. We had 3 young children. And the RSPCA had this dog in care, and they thought that she would be suitable.
Come on, now. Come on, Sassy, there's got to be a stick here for you somewhere.
She was devoted to all of us, but particularly to Chris. There was a particular bond between them.
Good girl. Come on. Come on, Sassy.
And if he went out in the evening, she'd lie down by the front door and wait for him to come home. And sort of tell him off when he came in. There'd be a conversation between them.
North Wold Road at 9:15. At this time in the morning, there's always a long queue at the bus stop outside Mr. Cumley's shop. The hairdresser next door was already at work.
Yes, I think it would
The previous attacks had made Mr. Cumley understandably security conscious. A keen musician himself, Mr. Cumley liked to listen to classical music while he got ready to open the shop. His first job of the morning was to put out his stock.
Shampoo and set. When for? Thursday. We can fit you in Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
With only a few days to go before closing down, Mr. Cumley didn't have much stock left.
Hold on, hold on. Push. Morning. What would you be interested in? Will you shut the door, please? Sasha! What the... Get back! Sasha! You...
The two men ran off in opposite directions. Sasha was badly wounded, but chased after one of them. Half a mile away from the shop, Sasha had given up the chase. She was found dying later that morning.
About 12:10, I was going out shopping, so I decided to phone Christopher and find out if he wanted anything. I let the phone ring for some time, but I assumed that he must be serving a customer, and he wasn't able to answer, so I left it.
Well, Roger Stoodley is in charge of the case. The difficult thing to understand, really, is why he was murdered.
Yes, that's right. Though it's clear that this is a reconstruction, obviously from the evidence we have, there was a tremendous struggle took place inside the shop. And it may be that he did try and prevent the robbery and was shot in the course of that.
What was the gun they used?
The gun they used is one similar to this. It's a .455 revolver. It's one that's used in the First World War, and because they're old, they're getting quite rare now.
Right, and you can tell that from the ammunition you found?
Yes, from the evidence we know it's a .455 revolver type weapon. Yes.
Somebody might recognise that. What descriptions do you have of the two men?
We have a video fit of one who was described as between 30 and 35 years old, 6 foot tall. As can be seen, he was black. He was wearing a black bomber jacket, tight black trousers with a distinctive white, what appeared to be a chalk mark on the left leg. The second one was shorter, about 5'9", aged about 25. Also black, his hair was longer, described as wiry, and he was wearing a blue tracksuit top with white piping on the sleeve and white, possibly trainer shoes.
Right. Now, Sasha the dog followed the taller of those two, the one we had the video fit of. If we could just punch up our micro map, we can see the route she actually took. There's the shop there, and the two men ran out and off in opposite directions. And the dog followed the taller one.
That's right. The dog followed the taller one towards the high street.
Right. And then the dog was found dying half a mile away in Leabridge Road.
Yes.
That means that they took a rather strange getaway route, if it was the getaway route.
Yes, it did. But we're not certain of the exact route it took. We know it went into one small turning on the junction of the high street, but after that, we're not clear where it went, and it may be that it was following the first suspect.
Right. So what you obviously need is for somebody to come forward who saw either of those two men running away from the scene on that day.
Yes, we do.
And there must have been quite a lot of people in Northwold Road.
Yes, there was a bus stop, as can be seen, right outside the shop, and at that time of the morning, there are usually 40 or 50 people waiting for various buses at that point. And of the large number of people we believe were there, only a very small handful have come forward with any information.
Right. Remember, it was Wednesday the 17th of June. You have had some information as a result of some publicity leading up to this programme?
Yes, certainly we have. Yes, 2 days ago, as a result of the trailer for this programme, a witness came forward who saw the second suspect running up a road just to the left of the shop. And we've confirmed that that is identical to the description of the second suspect.
Right, well, let's hope somebody can add to that, Mr. Sudi. Thank you very much. And if you do know anything you think which might help to find these two murderers, please phone us here on 01811 8055, or you can ring the incident room direct, and that is 01488 5212. That's 01488 5212.
The first of this month's reconstructions tells the story of a 25-year-old woman who lived alone in a bedsit at Tunbridge Wells in Kent. Wendy Knell was murdered there one Monday night in June. What's especially tragic about this case is that several people had seen prowlers in the district, but they hadn't reported them to the police. And there's a mystery about Wendy that maybe you can solve. The date is Monday, June the 22nd. Number 14, Guildford Road in Tunbridge Wells that Monday morning. At 8:30, as usual, Wendy Knell left her bedsit for her 15-minute walk to work.
Right. All you've got to do is check the prices on them and put them into the calculator.
Wendy was manageress of Super Snaps in Camden Road. That Monday, a new assistant had started, and Wendy took her through the routine.
Make sure they've got K34 on all of them.
And what's that?
That's the shop number.
Right.
Put them in alphabetical order and then into the main trays.
Wendy was good at her job and happy there, friendly and efficient, and popular with all the staff.
All right. Yeah. Call me if you need me.
Okay, then.
Wendy visited a customer, then at about 1:15, went to her bank and building society. Did she meet anyone else? After work, at 6 o'clock, Wendy went home to collect some laundry. Her bedsit was tiny and run down. In fact, she disliked it so much she rarely allowed anyone to visit, and she spent very little time there. When she left the window open. In fact, it wouldn't close because the latch had been painted over. There was easy access to the back of her house, which was divided into 9 small bedsits. Her ground floor room backed onto a poorly lit alleyway. There'd been several nighttime prowlers and peeping toms, and 24 hours earlier there'd been a strange incident at a house less than 50 yards away. A 19-year-old was alone in her second-floor flat on that Sunday evening.
Yes?
You shouldn't leave your window open, especially in the bedroom.
This is a Crimewatch video fit of the man, compiled by the witness. By 8 o'clock on the Monday evening, Wendy was finishing her washing in the Rustall laundrette, a couple of miles from her home.
Fred Astaire is dead.
Wendy's boyfriend, Ian, lived close by with his mother, and for the rest of the evening, the three of them watched TV together.
Army missiles which could have got into the hands of Ulster extremists. 4 men.
10:30, back in the alleyway behind Guildford Road. Someone who lived in the same house as Wendy saw a man trying to peep through a window in the house directly opposite. The prowler watched for some minutes before he was disturbed. The police weren't called. Three-quarters of an hour later, at 11:15, Wendy was taken home by her boyfriend, Ian. Wendy died from a blow to the head sometime before 5 a.m. Local residents recalled two events that night. At 12:30, a peeping Tom was spotted outside a house in nearby Grove Hill Road. And at 1:10 in Guildford Road, neighbours remember a car, possibly a blue Talbot Horizon, having difficulty starting outside Wendy's house.
At 12 o'clock, BBC Radio Kent News with Michael Bath. Police today issued a fresh appeal for witnesses following the murder of the Tunbridge Wells shop manageress Wendy Knell earlier this week. Wendy, who was 25, was found battered to death in her bedsit in Guildford Road.
2 days after Wendy's death, a new witness, a local shopkeeper, came forward with evidence which opened a whole new line of inquiry. Bits and Pieces is a second-hand goods shop specialising in collector's items. The owner believes Wendy was a regular visitor.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Come for your train, then?
Yes.
Over a period of 9 months, Wendy had visited the shop about once a fortnight, always to buy or look at model trains.
That'll be £4 then. Thank you very much.
How much are those trains up there?
Those are green ones?
Yes.
About £20.
Right. I'll come back for those.
Oh, righto.
Assuming it was Wendy, none of the trains she bought has ever been found. Wendy didn't keep them for herself, so to whom did she give them? The man in charge of seeking Wendy's killer is Richard Rickson. Was that Wendy?
Well, I want to be sure that the customer was Wendy Knell, and I would appeal to any viewer who recognises herself in that reconstruction to ring us tonight. If it was Wendy, then what was she doing with the trains? Who did she buy them for? Where are they now?
Now, she was in the habit of buying carriages, not locomotives. They were all 00 gauge, or their continental equivalent.
Yes, all Triang or Hornby make, and over a period of 9 months she bought perhaps a dozen of them. She purchased this model on the Friday before she died. It's a Fleischmann make. It's a German carriage, identical in every respect to this one apart from the colour. The one she bought was a single colour maroon.
Now, I gather that several things are missing from her flat, in particular her diary and her keys. Her diary, of course, would have her name in it, Wendy Knell. The keys are quite distinctive. This key ring is
yes,
very odd.
The key fobs she brought back from a recent holiday in Austria, and we certainly know that the brass Woman of the Year tag was attached to the key ring, as were the two keys you see in these.
Now, was her killer, do you think, someone she knew, or was this an opportunist crime? Do you know?
Well, I'm hoping that a telephone call tonight will answer that question for us.
The man who went to that woman's house nearby the night before and said, "You shouldn't keep your window open," a very odd thing to do.
Very strange
We've got a
incident.
video fit of him. Perhaps you could describe him to us.
Yes, that man is in his mid-20s. He's over 6 foot tall and very thinly built. He's got short, dark hair and a tidy moustache.
And that was about 6:30 on Sunday the 21st. Now, obviously, if that man is entirely innocent of the murder, he would do well to call you and
Yes,
say
he
so.
would. It's essential that we trace that man.
Right. Also, that car, that blue or possibly blue or greyish car that was outside her house about 1 o'clock on that the morning that she died. Again, that might be entirely innocent. Whoever was driving a car away from Guildford Street in Tunbridge Wells that night ought to come forward.
Yes, we need to eliminate that. It was a light blue or grey Talbot Horizon. It left Guildford Road. Did anybody see it leaving Guildford Road? Or did you see it arrive near where you live sometime in the early hours of Tuesday, the 23rd of June this year?
Superintendent Rickson, thank you very much. Please do call us if you can help. It's terribly important. Call right now. Here's the number, 01811 8055. That's 01811 8055. Or you can dial the incident room at Tunbridge Wells. That's Tunbridge Wells 511 055. The code for Tunbridge Wells is 0892 511 055. The last of this month's reconstructions is yet another that highlights the dangers of hitchhiking. Now, young people, especially young women, of course, know the risks of hitchhiking. But the truth is, if you don't have a bike or a car and there are no buses where you want to go when you want to go, the temptation to hitch is overwhelming. Rachael Partridge took that risk. She was 17 years old. Our reconstruction starts on Tuesday, the 25th of August, near her home in Oxfordshire. This is the village of Chinner, just off the M40 and some 10 miles from High Wycombe. Rachael had just started an apprenticeship there at Rowan's Dental Laboratory. She joined the firm straight from school, and they were very impressed with her ability and hard work. Rachael lived with her parents in the countryside at Chinner Hill, a mile from Chinner village. At 17, she was the youngest of the family. Her two elder sisters had left home.
Oh, it's really lovely. I can't wait.
That Tuesday evening, after work, as she did most evenings, Rachael went to see her boyfriend. They'd met at school, and in 3 days' time were due to go on their first holiday together in Italy.
I picked up your passport from your mum the other
Did
day.
you?
Mm-hmm.
What's it?
Well,
I bet yours is awful. Let me
That's
see.
all
Let me
right.
see. Oh, that'd be Mum. I better not keep her waiting.
OK.
I'll give you a ring later, okay? Bye.
Bye-bye. Though Rachael's mother had specially driven down to the village to bring her home, Rachael announced that she had other plans that night.
Mum, can you take me to Alex's? I want to use a sunbed.
No, I can't tonight, Rachael. Your father needs a car for a meeting.
But she's expecting me.
I can't help that. Your father needs the car now.
Rachael couldn't be persuaded. She didn't want to go home, and there wasn't time to drive her to her friends in Thame. So her mother turned around and, at Rachael's request, left her back in the village. Once there, Rachael met a colleague from work and cadged a lift to Thame to use her friend's sunbed.
Right, that's on. Remember, it's only 10 minutes.
Only 10? Oh, I don't want to be all white and horrible on the beach.
If it's any longer than that, you're going to be all red and horrible.
After using the sunbed, Rachael had the problem of getting home. Her boyfriend heard she was somewhere in Thame and knew there were no buses back, so he went to look for her. Ironically, he drove right past the road where Rachael was. Rachael had no way home now except to hitch a lift.
Slightly, yes.
Oh, no. How many have I got?
Oh, you'll get them when you get tanned anyway.
Oh, thanks for the sunbed.
That's all right.
Take care. I'll send you a postcard.
Right. Have a good time.
I will.
Bye.
15 minutes later, at 5 to 9, Rachael was seen by a motorist thumbing a lift just past the railway bridge on the Chinner Road. She was walking in the direction of her home. The Chinner Road is a busy one, and moments later she was seen again by a couple who were driving slowly, looking for an address. They turned round at the Garden City roundabout, and as they drove back up the road, they noticed a parked van. They think it was white, and only one headlamp seemed to be working properly. The hitchhiker was talking to the driver. Just after 9, another motorist saw Rachael standing on the grass verge of the Garden City roundabout. This is the outskirts of Thame. Beyond this point, there are no streetlights. Rachael was frightened of the dark, and there were 6 miles of black country lanes between Rachael and her home at Chinner Hill. Back in Chinner, her boyfriend was ringing round to find where Rachael was. She'd promised to call him, but it was now 10:30. When he found she still wasn't at home, he began to worry.
Hello, I'm trying to reach my girlfriend Rachael. She said she'd
Eventually, he found the friend's number in Thame and rang to see if she was there. She wasn't.
Is Alex in? No. Did Alex's note say which pub she was going to? All right, the Three Horseshoes at Towersey. Yes, I know that.
Stephen drove to Towersey and checked the pub, but the girls weren't there. He drove on into Thame, but at 11 o'clock, he gave up looking. Next morning, 7 miles from Thame and 2.5 miles from Rachael's home lies Bledlow Ridge. A small track runs from the road to Callodown Farm. Back in August, these hedgerows were overgrown and the fields were full of ripened corn. At 11:40, 2 farm workers saw someone lying in the corner of the barn. They discovered the naked body of a young woman. There was blood around her head and neck. Rachael had been struck heavily on the face, sexually assaulted and asphyxiated. The man who's seeking Rachael's killer is Roy Payne. How can people help?
We need anyone who travelled along the road from Thame in Oxfordshire to Bledlow Ridge, which is just over the border in Buckinghamshire, who may have given Rachael a lift that night or who saw her being given a lift by anybody else. We need them to contact us.
Now, it's difficult to think back to Tuesday the 25th of August. It was the last Tuesday before August bank holiday, wasn't it? Now, there was that white van that we saw at Garden City roundabout that had stopped there. Have you traced anybody to do with that yet?
No, that is another vehicle which we are trying to trace. It will be seen it had a defective offside headlamp. The driver spoke to Rachael. We need to trace the driver and find out what the conversation was about.
Right, and eliminate him, of course.
And eliminate him from the
now,
inquiry.
Remind us where this is. For people who don't know the area very well, it's on the B4445 from Thame to Chinner, and her body, of course, was found in the barn. Now, tell us that's where she left from Thame, heading towards her home just outside Chinner. Now, that's where she was found. Was anyone seen around that barn?
At the moment, we are trying to establish and trace anyone that has any connection with the barn or who may have visited the barn. And about 3 weeks prior to the murder, during the early hours of the morning, a small white Ford Fiesta was seen leaving that area, driven by a young man who's described as being about 20 years of age, 6 feet tall, athletic build, with long dark hair. That is an artist's impression of him. He has been seen previously in the Chinner area when he'd been dressed very dark clothing and a gold-coloured necklace with a very large gold-coloured cross upon it.
Now, you've brought the most extraordinary thing here. Sorry, may I reach across you?
Certainly.
This is a plaster cast that was found in the barn. It doesn't look terribly realistic as a foot, of course, because it is a cast of a moving foot. What do you know about the size?
This is actually a reconstruction of what we believe the foot looked like that made the mark we found. It's a minimum size, 8 to 8.5 G fitting, very large, wide foot. The foot is believed to be made by a man, and if that's the case, because of the width, he may well have taken a size 10 upwards in shoes.
You also found, just so people know, some tyre tracks of a particularly distinctive sort of tyre. What was the make of it?
It's a Lee Conquest, which is an economy tyre. Some of the tracks outside were made by a tyre of this description, and we need to trace anyone that's visited the barn who has any of those tyres fitted to vehicles. There's an appeal fund being set up by the local community. It's already reached several £1,000s. Please do call us if you can help right now. Here's the number, 01811 8055, 01811 8055, or you can dial the incident room at Aylesbury. 0296 is the code for Aylesbury, 395 010. The first of this month's reconstructions is a case that's been headline news in Scotland, the disappearance of Lynda Hunter. Some stories have associated Lynda with the missing London estate agent Susie Lamplugh, but police have no reason to link the two women, except that they're both missing. Maybe in Lynda's case, it's a mystery that you can help resolve. The story starts near the Hunters' home, Carnoustie, 12 miles from Dundee. Thursday, August the 20th. Every day, Lynda Hunter drove to the golf course to exercise her dog, Shep, on the nearby beach. Lynda was generally in high spirits. She'd just discovered she was pregnant. She worked at a residential home for the elderly in Dundee, but she and Shep were inseparable. She always took him with her. Though only 30, Lynda was second in charge of the home, a job that frequently involved working nights. At 6:30 that Thursday evening, Lynda phoned her mother.
I'm all right, but I'm feeling a bit sick.
She was devoted to her parents, who were both unwell, and she phoned them almost every other day.
Yeah, bye.
Lynda and her husband both had that Friday off, but Lynda had early morning sickness and stayed in bed.
It's precisely 8 o'clock on Friday, the 21st of August.
Her husband gave breakfast to his son and a friend who'd stayed the night.
There's your breakfast.
A team of specialist social workers.
Shame you lost in the match last night, eh?
Yeah. The funeral of Rudolf Hess has been delayed while his relatives consider requesting a second autopsy.
At 8:20, the two boys left to catch the bus to school. At about 10, Andrew drove Lynda to the chemist's.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I'm 6 weeks pregnant and I've been suffering very badly from morning sickness. I wonder if you had anything to help me.
How long is it lasting?
Oh, it seems to go on all day.
In that case, I don't think that there's anything that I could recommend that would help you. I'd suggest that you go and see your doctor.
Really?
I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Lynda went round the corner to the health centre and asked for a prescription from her doctor.
Well, actually, Dr. McKendrick isn't in the health centre at the moment. I'll speak to him when he comes in and ask him, but he may want you to make an appointment. Would you call back just after 11 o'clock and I'll have seen him by then?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Frustrated by all this, and by now feeling ill and irritable, Lynda went home with Andrew. For some reason, she began to pack the bag she used for her night shifts, though she wasn't due at work until the following afternoon. Maybe she was going to her parents'.
I'm going out. You can pick up the car from work tomorrow at 3.
Well, I did need the car, Lynda. But if you're going to Dundee, you could give me a lift.
If you're ready now, then come. If not, you can get the bus.
Come on, Chip.
Well, just give us a minute and I'll go get my files.
Neither Lynda nor Shep have been seen since. Lynda often did stay with her parents, and they lived in Glenrothes, but they weren't expecting her. At any rate, Lynda's car, with or without her at the wheel, almost certainly took one of these routes south. It was discovered next day in central Manchester. Dale Street, behind Piccadilly Station. Just after 9 a.m. on Saturday, the 22nd, a traffic warden gave Lynda's Cavalier a parking ticket. Next day, at 6:15 on Sunday evening, a policeman noticed the car had been broken into and the radio cassette was missing.
7411 to CK Alpha 1. A vehicle check, please, on Delta 266 Charlie Echo Sierra.
Yeah, you check on Delta 266 Charlie Echo Sierra. Shows to a Vauxhall Cavalier in white. Registered to Lynda Kearns. Could be using the name Hunter. I've got an entry by Tayside Police. Missing from home.
When police examined the car, they found suggestions that Lynda had not been the last driver. The driver's seat had been adjusted for someone much taller than Lynda. Lynda's bags had been left in the back, along with tablets for Shep, who had a heart and bladder condition. But her money, about £30, and 3 credit cards, were gone. One of her earrings was found lying in the boot. The grey covers that had been on all the seats had been removed from the front. And the floor mat on the passenger side was missing. Both the tools and the spare wheel seemed to have disappeared. In fact, the wheel had been fitted to the front offside. So where were the tools and the other wheel and tyre? It was a distinctive Antibes Cavalier. Somewhere between Carnoustie and Manchester, between Friday and Saturday mornings, that wheel had been changed. But where and by whom? Leslie Liney, it seems logical that whoever took off the seat covers and took the mat away from the floor was doing so to make sure there were no forensic clues left behind.
This is certainly a very strong possibility.
I know that technically you are not investigating a crime, but you must be fairly pessimistic about the chances of finding Lynda.
We're very concerned for Lynda's safety. And I would certainly appeal to Lynda, if she should be watching this programme, to please contact us.
Do you think there is a faint possibility she might still be alive?
A remote possibility, I think.
Now, her dog, of course, is also missing. Live or dead, may have been found. He's quite an old dog, 14 years or so.
Yes, the dog's 14 years old. It's a cross collie. It has several distinctive features. All 4 feet are white. The dog has been neutered, and there is a small operation scar on the right haunch.
Now, it also had a heart and bladder condition, didn't it?
Yes.
That's hence the pills. Maybe a vet has got some information about that. But it's only that very distinctive dog with that scar on the right back leg that we're interested in. Also, of course, there might be witnesses to the drive down, because that car, D266CES, had a puncture, by the looks of it.
Yes, we would be very interested in anybody who may have seen the car between Carnoustie and Manchester on the 22nd of August of this year.
It's quite a distinctive car. Incidentally, if anybody's found that tyre, the tyre itself, I know it's an MXL radial, anybody in the tyre business would know that's very rare, and it's obviously very rare to find one attached to a wheel somewhere.
It's unusual, and it's unusual insofar as Vauxhall fitted it to that particular model, the Antibes, which there was only 2,625, I believe, produced. I think it would be most unusual to find that wheel and tyre lying by the roadside.
Well, the best hope, perhaps, is that someone has found some of that material discarded from the car. Whatever information you have, do call us if you can help in any way. 01811 8055. That's 01811 8055. You can speak to a BBC researcher or to a detective, all in the strictest confidence. If you prefer, you can call the incident room at Dundee. That's 0382 232 00. That's 0382, the code for Dundee, 232 00.